Speaking of formula, we have to talk about baby formula, which is currently in the middle of a nationwide shortage. So parents, moms, but also dads are across the country right now trying to find formula, and up to 40%, 50% in several dozen states of products are out of stock. Stores have literally started rationing it, and people are hoarding it. And this is like, wow, quite the situation. But one thing that's really interested me is there's a lot of takes out there about, like, basically to some extent or another, why don't you just breastfeed or something? And these takes usually, but not exclusively, come from men. And I learned very quickly that actually I was talking to a mom about this. A lot of women can't. Sometimes they're taking a medication that is indispensable for their health, and they don't want to pass it on to the child. That would be dangerous for the child's health. Sometimes if they get pregnant again while their baby is still nursing, it disrupts the production of breast milk. There's so many valid reasons, and it's also like a personal thing. It's like maybe they have to go to work and pumping is really difficult and you often can't get enough. There's so many reasons why people need baby formula, but it's been really disappointing to see like part of the response of this shortage be like attacking moms who don't breastfeed.
Yeah, also, I guess I'm going to call my sister-in-law out here, but I've learned a lot about breastfeeding in the past couple of months since my first niece was born, and it's apparently very painful, like very painful. The things I've learned, the things I've heard make me so happy I'm not having kids, like, oh God. But it's there's so many things that go into this, and I've long kind of known about this randomly because of my work around occupational licensing, and a lactose consultant is a thing where they actually send people, nurses that like can specifically try to help women do this because a lot of them have trouble with it. And they often try to license that, which I work against. But all of that to say, it's a very emotional thing. Like women feel very shamed over this a lot of the time, somewhat by moms, other moms, and like kind of mommy culture. And then also by random men on the internet who have like very strong opinions about this for some reason. I've even noticed it in some of the comments on my post and content about this subject this week. Men being like, too bad women aren't healthy enough to breastfeed. It's like, sir, you probably got a beer gut and like a cholesterol that has a higher number than my age. Like, I don't think you should be talking. Like, please stop. I mean, it's so weird, the things that people care about in other people's lives. Honestly, it's bizarre. Like, I can't fathom having an opinion on whether or not somebody breastfeeds, of all things. Like, please get a life.
Mind your business, right? And it also distracts from the real problems, which we're going to run through real quick. Like, why is this actually happening? Is this a market failure? Did capitalism fail us? No. As usual, the government failed us. And we can run through a few ways that happened. One is that the baby formula domestic market is extremely concentrated. There's only 3 or 4 big companies who produce it all. And the reason for that is crony capitalism, extensive subsidies and regulations that they use through lobbying to get to consolidate the industry. And then there was a recall at an Abbott plant a couple of months ago that really, this had already been an issue. You were seeing 10 to 20% coming out of stock. But this recall threw everything into a full-blown shortage. And of course, we've now found out that the FDA was warned several months in advance about the potential contamination issue that caused this recall and did nothing.
Yeah, so per usual, the government is to blame. No surprise there. And I think that people should be outraged about this. It's obviously like a huge issue that both parties have contributed to through tariffs, through bad trade wars, through regulations, subsidies, the list goes on. You know, these are all things that are, again, not capitalism. These things are an attack on capitalism by the government.
The other aspect of this baby formula shortage that is honestly insane is that as we speak, the federal government, the customs agents are confiscating safe baby formula that people are trying to bring into this country because it is one of the most heavily regulated, restricted, and protected trade imports that we've got in this country. There's an 18% tariff on it, and that's for the countries we're even allowed to import it. We outright ban it from most European countries, even though they have stricter regulations than the US for their quality approval process. Our government literally has decided to just torpedo our own supply in the middle of a shortage through these anti-capitalist policies. And so, yeah, we should be blaming the federal government for the baby formula shortage, at least worsening it and continuing it, because this is what their anti-capitalist idiot policies have wrought.
it's important to say these policies were put in place by both Republicans and Democrats, right? Like
Yep.
Trump did many of these tariffs and trade wars too. And it's just, I'm so tired of people not calling out both parties for their complicity in this, because these are anti-capitalist policies. These are actual attack on the free market, on our economy, and it's time that they be held responsible for that. We, as free market supporters, often point out that these kinds of protectionist, special favor policies lead to shortages, lead to higher prices. We say this over and over and over till we're blue in the face. And then you still have people turn around and blame the absolute wrong thing when these issues inevitably occur. And right now, that's what's happening with large segments of the GOP, especially prominent leaders within it, blaming immigrants for the baby formula shortage. Like, I've said often, the immigration turn in 2016, that pivot they did was my last straw. I'd already had a lot of issues with the GOP before that. Once that started, I was like, I'm out, because I knew that rhetoric would always turn to some really xenophobic, like terrible territory, and inevitably that is what has happened. But basically, it seems that the GOP is trying to make people mad that there is formula being sent to our border camps where we are imprisoning people, detaining them, which is already an atrocity in my book. But they're mad that we are then feeding them, that we are then using baby formula to feed the babies that are in our custody, that we are holding hostage. And they're using the excuse to say, like, we think our kids should come first. Your kids are still out in the wild. You can at the very least still go shop around and look for baby formula, or you can make it at home, or you can figure out some other alternatives. People who are in our border camps cannot. And the fact that your politics have taken you to a place where you think it is excusable to advocate against feeding babies that we have put in jail for the high crime of being born in some other imaginary line versus where your kid was born, you need help.
So Representative Elise Stefanik of New York, member of House leadership, tweeted, "Joe Biden continues to put America last by shipping pallets of baby formula to the southern border as American families face empty shelves." The governor of Texas, also a Republican, Greg Abbott, lamented in a statement, "As parents face the nightmare of a nationwide formula shortage, the Biden administration is happy to provide baby formula to illegal immigrants coming across the southern border." Now, I'll say a few things about this. These are just a couple examples, but a bunch of Republicans have made this similar point. One is that they're attacking Biden for something he's actually obligated under federal law to do. The Flores settlement and other federal law, if you have literal infants in custody, starving them is not an option. It's also not morally, remotely ethical, or pro-life to say that the babies we've got in our custody, because their parents illegally came to the country, they didn't choose this. Yeah, the infants chose to come to our country. Of course not. They should starve, right? Or that some babies should be fed over others because of the accident of their birth. All of this is kind of morally barbaric, but it's also like a dumb attack, because even if the Biden administration wanted to not feed these babies, they literally couldn't, first of all. And secondly, the amount of baby formula being sent to the border is, in the grand scheme of things, quite small. They're talking about a few pallets, these Republican politicians. And actually, immigration analysts have pointed out that there's really only probably about 400, less than 400 babies in border jails at any given time, right? We're talking about a few hundred in a national crisis of millions of babies, and a pretty small amount that wouldn't make much of a difference either way. So I think the whole outrage is just an example of how partisanship and tribalism and culture war can really rot your brain to the point where you're compromising on some of your most base values, like being pro-life and pro-family, and ignoring the rule of law just to attack a Democratic president, even when in this case, and I often attack this Democratic president or criticize him, but in this case, there's nothing to attack if anything, it distracts from the many real problems and the real bad federal policies Biden could change and isn't, to make this a stupid culture war immigration thing. The whole thing makes me kind of nauseous.